Do you believe that spirits are real? It was a humid August evening when Janine Clarke, a determined journalist passionate about uncovering the truth behind local legends, first heard the tale of Dunham Road, a secluded stretch in the Blue Mountains reputed to be haunted by restless spirits. Janine had always been drawn to mysteries, and the notion of modern-day horrors intertwined with ancient folklore stirred something deep within her. With a notepad in her bag and a digital recorder in hand, she set out to document what many dismissed as mere superstition. Chapter 1. The Road Less Travelled. The road to Dunham was narrow and winding, flanked by towering moss-covered trees that seemed to whisper secrets from centuries past. Janine's rickety pickup truck rattled along the uneven path, the hum of its engine competing with the symphony of nocturnal creatures. As she ascended, the tropical air grew heavy with mist, and an eerie silence began to fall, only broken by the occasional rustle in the underbrush. She recalled the words of Uncle Leroy, a respected elder from her hometown, who had once warned her, "Dunham Road have a serious duppy. That spirit will never rest. It will always look for vengeance. So tread lightly, you're here." At that moment, the weight of his words pressed upon her heart, but her resolve remained unshaken. Chapter 2. The Haunting Begins. Reaching a small clearing, Janine parked her truck and stepped out. The thick mist swirled around her feet, and the only light came from her flickering flashlight. She pressed record on her digital device and began to describe her surroundings. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and wild hibiscus, and shadows danced in the periphery of her vision. As she advanced down the narrow trail, a sudden chill cut through the humid air. A soft, almost imperceptible sound, a whisper, like the rustle of dry leaves, seemed to call her name. Janine. It was neither a voice of warning nor an invitation, but carried an unmistakable sorrow. Startled, she swung her flashlight in the direction of the sound, but the beam revealed nothing more than the shifting fog. Pressing on, she encountered remnants of old, crumbling stone walls, partially reclaimed by nature. Carved into the stone were faded symbols, an intricate pattern that combined both African and Arawak influences. Janine's heart pounded with both excitement and trepidation. She felt as if she was standing at the crossroads of time, where ancient curses melded with modern fear. Chapter 3. The Encounter. Deeper into the forest, the mist grew denser, and the modern world seemed to recede. Janine's recorder captured intermittent static and disembodied whispers that grew louder with each step. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the gloom, a man in tattered clothing, his eyes hollow and his skin ghostly pale under the moonlight. His presence was at once tragic and terrifying, like a relic from a forgotten past. Who are you?" Janine stuttered, her voice trembling despite her determined facade. The figure's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. In a voice that resonated with ancient sorrow, he replied, "Me name is Samuel. Me tired but can't rest." His accent was thick with the cadence of old Jamaican patois, and his words painted a vivid picture of despair and betrayal. Samuel's story unfolded like a dark folktale. Centuries ago, he was an honest man who had been wronged by those he once trusted. Betrayed and murdered on this very road, his spirit was condemned to wander, seeking justice and retribution. Over time, his anguish had transformed him into something otherworldly, a duppy haunting Dunham Road, unable to find peace. Chapter 4. The Unraveling Curse. Listening intently, Janine realized that Samuel's curse was more than a tragic tale. It was an active malediction that seeped into the very soil of Dunham Road. He spoke of restless nights and tormented souls, of spectral apparitions that emerged with the mists, and of families that had vanished without a trace. His eyes pleaded with her as he recounted, "Every full moon do duppydom rise. Die restless spirits seek fi avenge them injustice, and if ye interfere, ye might join we in the eternal blight. Janine's recorder captured every haunting word, but as the night's darkness deepened, she began to feel a mounting dread. The whispers around her grew louder, overlapping voices from another era. The temperature dropped sharply, and a dense, unnatural fog began to roll in, obscuring her path. With Samuel as her reluctant guide, she journeyed further into the heart of the cursed road. The air was thick with memories. Each step resonated with the echoes of past sorrows. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind scattered loose leaves and carried with it the anguished cries of unseen souls. In the distance, a decrepit mansion loomed, its silhouette barely visible through the haze. It was as if the mansion itself were a monument to the curse, a relic where the boundary between the living and the dead was perilously thin. Chapter 5. The Mansion of Lost Souls. The mansion, known locally as the House of Lament, had a notorious reputation. Locals whispered that it was built on cursed land, and that its walls had absorbed centuries of pain and betrayal. Samuel warned Janine in a hushed tone, "Inside that house, you might find the truth, but you might also find yourself trapped in a web of the dead." Despite his ominous counsel, Janine felt compelled to enter. Her journalistic instinct, mingled with a personal quest for understanding, drove her forward. Inside, the mansion was cloaked in darkness, with only the pale beams of her flashlight cutting through the oppressive gloom. The floorboards creaked underfoot as she navigated narrow corridors, adorned with decaying portraits and relics from a bygone era. Each artifact seemed to hold a piece of the curse's puzzle, whispering stories of betrayal, loss, and unresolved vengeance. In one dusty parlor, she discovered an old journal. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the ink had faded, but the words were legible. Accounts of forbidden love, bitter betrayals among plantation families, and a curse that promised eternal unrest for those who defied destiny. The entries mentioned Samuel by name, describing him as a man wronged by both greed and superstition. His soul, it seemed, was forever tethered to the mansion by an unyielding force of heartbreaking darkness. As Janine read, the temperature plummeted further. Shadows seemed to twist into grotesque shapes, and spectral figures flitted at the edge of her vision. The mansion was alive with the restless energy of those who had suffered beneath the weight of the curse. Chapter 6. Confrontation with the Past. In the mansion's grand hall, Janine encountered the true epicenter of the haunting. A large, ornate mirror stood against one wall, its surface rippling as though disturbed by an unseen hand. In that mirror, she did not see her own reflection, but a procession of sorrowful faces, men, women, and children trapped in a timeless limbo. At the center of this spectral gathering was Samuel, his expression a mixture of hope and despair. He spoke once more, his voice echoing around the room. "You see the past, Janine. The curse live in a wee soul, in a the spilled blood and broken promises of the land. We are the wronged, the hurt souls who cry for justice." The weight of his words settled over her like a shroud. Each face in the mirror seemed to beckon her, urging her to uncover the hidden truths behind their collective misery. Janine promised to bring their stories of hurt, betrayal, and pain to light. Yet, as she prepared to leave the mansion with Samuel's guidance, the floor trembled and the walls seemed to close in. The supernatural forces that bound the spirits began to stir, and the mansion's dark past threatened to overwhelm her. Chapter 7. The Final Hour. Outside, the storm had begun to break, unleashing torrential rain that blurred the line between earth and sky. Janine and Samuel raced back toward Dunham Road, the mansion's malevolent presence pursuing them like a spectre of doom. The mists thickened into a nearly impenetrable wall, and the once familiar road twisted into a labyrinth of darkness. In the heart of the storm, Janine's modern instincts clashed with ancient magic. Her phone buzzed with frantic notifications, a warning from an unknown number. Leave now before the curse claims you too. But it was too late. The spirits of Dunham Road, awakened by centuries of anguish, closed in. Samuel halted abruptly. "Dis a de moment, Janine. The curse, it live in a every stone, every whisper. If you want fi free we, you must confront the source." He pointed toward a rocky outcrop that jutted from the hillside, a natural formation that locals called the heart of the mountain. Legend had it that deep within its caverns lay a relic, a cursed talisman that had bound the spirits to this world. With a mixture of dread and determination, Janine stepped into the darkness of the cavern. The interior was a twisting network of tunnels, lit only by the erratic flashes of lightning through cracks in the ceiling. Every step echoed with the footsteps of those long gone, and the oppressive aura of ancient magic pressed down on her. Deep within the labyrinth, she discovered an altar fashioned from rough-hewn stone, upon which rested a small, intricately carved idol. It was the talisman that had started it all, a remnant of a forgotten ritual meant to protect the land, now corrupted by greed and betrayal. As she reached out to touch it, the cavern exploded with a cacophony of voices, a chorus of the damned, crying out in agony. For a moment, time itself seemed to fracture. Visions of past atrocities flashed before her eyes, the betrayal of Samuel, the exploitation of the land, and the curse that had ensnared generations. The talisman pulsed with an unholy light, and Janine realized that breaking the curse would require more than mere exposure. It would demand an act of true sacrifice and recognition of the wrongs done. Chapter 8. The Sacrifice and the Dawn. In that pivotal moment, Janine understood that to free Samuel and the countless souls trapped by the curse, she had to accept the burden of their stories as her own. With trembling hands, she picked up the cursed idol and recited the incantations inscribed in the ancient journal. Her voice resonated through the cavern, merging with the voices of the past in a haunting lament. As the final words left her lips, a surge of energy burst forth. The cavern trembled, and the talisman shattered into countless shards of shimmering light. The oppressive force that had bound the spirits began to dissipate, replaced by a profound silence, a silence that spoke of release and redemption. Outside, the storm began to clear. The mists lifted from Dunham Road, revealing a pale dawn. Samuel's spectral form, now radiant with a serene light, approached Janine. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with both sorrow and gratitude. "You're free we at last." With that, his figure dissolved into the morning light, joining the myriad souls who were finally released from their torment. Epilogue: The New Beginning. Janine returned home a changed woman. Her recordings, journal entries, and the memories of that fateful night would form the cornerstone of a series of articles and documentaries, ensuring that the true story of Dunham Road, and the curse that had plagued it, was never forgotten. The tale became a catalyst for healing, prompting countless people to honor their ancestors and reconcile with the painful history that had haunted their land for so long. Though the physical remnants of the curse had vanished, the memory of that night lived on in every whisper of the wind and every rustle of the leaves along Dunham Road. And as the sun rose higher over the blue mountains, the land breathed a sigh of relief, a quiet promise that even the darkest curses can be broken with truth, understanding, and a willingness to face the past. In the end, the spirits free, and the land was healed, Janine later wrote in her final article for the Jamaican storybook. And so the legend of the Duppy on Dunham Road didn't become another horror story, but a testament of unselfishness, being compassionate to our forebearers, an evidence of the resilience of a people determined to reclaim themselves and forge a brighter future.